Thank you very much for joining us and welcome everyone. I think today is a very important milestone for me and TeacherMatic because we've been working on these two resources for a number of months. And today we are officially launching the Getting Started with TeacherMatic course alongside our brand new rollout guide. And these two resources are designed to give you, your staff, and your organization the tools and the support to embed TeacherMatic across your organization effectively. So you get the return on investment. And when I talk about return on investment, I'm really talking about improved teaching, learning and assessment, well-being, and improved learning outcomes. So let's have a look at today's agenda. The first question we're going to ask is your institution AI ready? And we're going to look at some different approaches to AI adoption that we've seen across the sector. We're also going to look at the innovation adoption life cycle. And then we're going to do a deep dive on the Getting Started with TeacherMatic course, showing you how you can access this resource. And we're going to look at the rollout guide, and we're going to particularly focus on this change management framework called ADKAR. And of course, to tell you why TeacherMatic is so different to any competitor out there. And that's why we're in over 80% of the FE sector, and we're growing in a number of primary schools, secondary schools, and universities. And also just to share with you some of our resources, how you can join some of our communities, and extra support that you can receive. And then we'll end this webinar with a Q&A and a call to action. So, is your institution AI ready? And now readiness, of course, can mean many different things to many of you. Some institutions are holding back and waiting with regards to how they adopt AI. Some, believe it or not, have gone down the route of banning AI completely. And we've seen many that have left staff to figure it out on their own. And then the last approach that we've seen is an institution-wide approach. And that's where TeacherMatic sort of falls in. So we're going to look at these approaches to AI adoption in more detail. So the wait and see. These are the ones that are holding back and watching what other colleges and schools do and waiting for evidence before acting. And the risk is that they fall behind and staff lose valuable time and miss opportunities. And by the time the institution makes a move, others are already ahead. But interestingly, the ones that have done a wait and see has seen what other colleges have done with TeacherMatic and have actually seen the impact of TeacherMatic and have now taken that step forward in adopting TeacherMatic. We've also seen some colleges and schools do a total ban on all of these AI. And I think their approach is that they don't want their staff to go and upload sensitive material to these large language models. We've seen also partial bans where some colleges and schools have banned the likes of ChatGPT, but then have, allowed certain large language models to be used. And then I think probably many have this approach where they have allowed their staff to go and discover and, adapt and fend for themselves. And there is a risk in that, the staff that go and are allowed to go and use all of these different large language models often use this, and they might not be GDPR compliant, and they're probably breaking a number of institutional policies. So this creates a lot of confusion and inconsistency and risk. And it means staff spend more time experimenting and less time benefiting from a structured, safe platform. And then, of course, we've got the institution-wide, adoption. And, I'm assuming that the vast majority of people on this webinar have adopted, this approach. And this is where TeacherMatic comes in. And TeacherMatic, as you know, is a safe, GDPR compliant platform with UK-based servers. And crucially, we never use that data to train the large language models. And it's a platform that's been created by educators for educators. So it aligns with the sector needs and, many of the policies. And then now with this new rollout guide, this strategy that we've worked on for months, institutions don't just hand staff a tool and walk away. They can get that structured and supported framework and get this free online course to help their staff learn how to use TeacherMatic effectively so they can improve teaching, learning, and assessment. So obviously, when we introduce any technology, and many of your roles today, your responsibility is to support and introduce new technology to staff. But when we introduce any new technology in education, there's always challenges. Staff can feel resistant or anxious about change, which is absolutely natural. Often there isn't structured training time, so adoption becomes inconsistent across teams. And leadership may be supportive, but not always visible in driving the rollout. And teachers can feel a bit overwhelmed with what I call initiative fatigue. So that's why we've created these two resources to reduce these barriers to successful adoption. And that's the Getting Started with the TeacherMatic course, which provides structured self-paced training, and the rollout guide that gives roles like yourselves a framework so they can roll out TeacherMatic more effectively. So let's take a look at this landing page first of the Getting Started with TeacherMatic course. And you can access that by going to teachermatic.com/course. So let's have a look at what that looks like. And just before we do that, what is this course? It's a free, certified, online and self-paced course. And it essentially is a step-by-step practical training course so your teachers can learn how to use TeacherMatic more effectively. And although obviously we cover TeacherMatic, essentially it's about improving teaching and learning and assessment through the use of TeacherMatic. So it builds the competence and the confidence of your teachers to deliver better. So the course consists really of 9 modules. The last one, as you can see, is a feedback survey, and I highly encourage everyone to give us feedback so we can improve this course even further. So please do encourage all your staff to give us as much feedback as possible. But course consists of 9 units, or 9 modules more like. And as you can see, the time it will take to complete each module. Now, each module consists of videos, except the welcome and course overview, but all the rest are videos. So they watch the video, and then there's a quiz that they need to complete to ensure that they've learnt what the module contains. So what you'll need to do is overall, you'll need to get a 70% pass rate in order to be awarded this certificate where it states that you've completed this course successfully. So let's just jump to the Getting Started with TeacherMatic page. So if you go to teachermatic.com/course, you'll get to our landing page here where you'll get lots of information about the course, who it's designed for, and then you'll get the course outline here. For you now to register on the course, you'll need to go all the way to the top here and just click on register for free access. You complete this, and within about 5 to 10 minutes, you should receive an email with details of how to access this course on our learning management system. Okay, so that's how you really enroll onto this course. So please do encourage all your colleagues to enroll on this course. Once you're enrolled on the course, this is what the course looks like. So for example, if I click on what is TeacherMatic here and click here, as I said, all the modules except the first one contains videos. It explains what TeacherMatic is. Educators like Steve Wild. You click, you finish the video, you click submit, and then there'll be a quiz that will test you on your knowledge about what you've learned on that video. So for example, here's a quiz about how to log in and set up your account. Now, I'm assuming most of you are going to fly through this, so you don't have to spend much time completing the quiz. There'll be other quizzes. You'll need to watch the video in detail in order to complete it. So that's the Getting Started with TeacherMatic course. I want to share with you here also a few quotes of our of people that have completed the course already, because we did trial it out with a few people, and this is some of the feedback that we received. The course was really good and engaging for new users of TeacherMatic. It is great. It's a great introduction to get them to understand some of the fundamentals of the system. Here's another quote, and there's one module that really emphasizes the idea of using AI professionally, ethically, and responsibly. And this person here, this user here has said, you know, what an incredible, valuable module that was, because of this, you know, extremely important, you know, point that there has to be human oversight in everything that AI produces. So bits of feedback, and we would love everyone to complete that feedback once they complete the course, so we can continuously improve the course over time, of course. All right, so the next resource is going to be, I think, very useful, you know, for roles that are responsible for rolling out new technology. Obviously, this is focused on TeacherMatic, but the idea here is that it really is useful for anything new that you roll out. And for you to access this resource, you go to teachermatic.com/strategy. So we've got a landing page for that, and it's exactly the same. You need to complete the form. You'll get an email within 5 to 10 minutes, you know, telling you how to access that on our learning management system. So what is this rollout strategy guide? Essentially, it's based on this ADKAR change management framework. And ADKAR essentially is an acronym that stands for A for awareness, D for desire, K for knowledge, A for ability, and the R is for reinforcement, but I also like to refer to it as reward and recognition. So we're just going to go and briefly go over all of these stages, and this is what you're going to find out in the rollout guide. So the first stage of this ADKAR change management framework is the A for awareness. So how have you raised awareness that you've adopted TeacherMatic in order, you know, to reduce that teacher workload, improve staff well-being, and improve teaching, learning, and assessment? Has your leadership communicated this through emails and meetings? Have you launched an event, you know, a very big event at the start of the year, you know, telling everyone that we've adopted TeacherMatic? Are you sending, you know, weekly reminders? And, you know, you might have posters in the staff rooms and have it on your digital displays. So we suggest a number of ways to raise, you know, to raise awareness about TeacherMatic. The next The D for desire, and this is actually quite psychological. And what you're essentially answering here is this question: what's in it for me? And this is the question I think you really need to answer to staff, because staff have always done it their way, and it seems to have worked so far for them. So the desire is, what's in it for me? Oh, by adopting and using TeacherMatic, I'm actually going to reduce my workload. My well-being is going to improve because I'm not going to be overwhelmed with too much work. I'm actually going to improve teaching, learning, and assessment here. Even if you're a seasoned teacher, it's going to give you some really creative ideas on how to improve teaching, learning, and assessment. So the desire is, as I said, this intrinsic motivation. Why should I change, the way I've been doing things? And you can do this through a variety of ways. And we suggest in the rollout guide, you might have these champions, these TeacherMatic champions, which are your innovators and early adopters that will go and inspire and engage their colleagues, to answer really that question: what's in it for me? Well, you can, instead of spending days in creating a schemes of work and lesson plans and quizzes, you can literally do it in minutes. That's what's in it for you. And of course, at the end, you can see highlighting the getting started with TeacherMatic course, which is really going to show them, the immediate benefits of that. So the next one is, how are you providing knowledge to your staff? And I think by this new getting started with TeacherMatic course, I think we've done a major part for that. So you can really rely on the course and you can get your staff to complete the course, because I think that's probably one of the most effective ways for staff to engage with TeacherMatic. Now, many of you have probably got me at the start of the year to try and inspire and engage your staff in using TeacherMatic. And they really do get, excited about it, and they see the potential. But the reality is this, is that, as a former FE lecturer, that have spent 20 years in the classroom, is that I might get really excited with something, but when I go back into the classroom, reality sets in. And obviously, I used to deal with 5 classes, 25 students per class. And sometimes this excitement fades away and it tends to go into the, background. And I forget that actually TeacherMatic exists. But getting staff to complete this 2-hour plus course independently, where it's part of a CPD program, where you're giving them the space and time, they're much more likely to engage with the platform, obviously complemented with hands-on training at your organization, reminders and weekly tips. And of course, don't forget the new staff that, that it has to be part of the new staff onboarding procedures, where you'll get new staff into your institution. So is the course going to be part of that process? And of course, we've seen some fantastic examples of support sessions where you have if you're using Microsoft Teams, you might have a dedicated team there for TeacherMatic, where you get some of your enthusiastic users, your champions, to have these drop-in sessions, or they might be delivering webinars every fortnight or something like that. So to complement the getting started with the TeacherMatic course, we also suggest, other strategies. So once they have the knowledge, like I know how to go and use the quiz generator in TeacherMatic, what do they do with that knowledge? And this is where the A for ability comes in. So I know how to use, for example, the quiz generator in TeacherMatic, but what do I do with that? Well, as an example, I might export that into Microsoft Forms, and I might now start using this as a starter activity. I might use it as a mini plenary. I might use it as, a final plenary. So that's where this ability comes into play. I know how to use the generators, but how am I going to apply that knowledge? And that's where ability is. And that's where you're really going to be improving teaching, learning, and assessment. You've got the knowledge, now you need to go and apply that knowledge in your classrooms. Okay. And I think, this reflective practice and the peer mentorship is going to play a crucial role in there. And this is where, teachers that need support in improving some of their, lesson observations, this will play, I think, a critical part in those processes there. So then finally, what you have is this reinforcement. You can't expect to roll out a new piece of technology expecting all your staff to adopt it. There has to be this ongoing reinforcement cycle, right? So, and that's where these weekly reminders come in, where it becomes part of your quality improvement, processes, where the message is just reinforced. And once it's reinforced, this is where I was talking about the R can also stand for reward and recognition. You need to recognize the staff that are doing really well with TeacherMatic and the impact that it's had, on teaching and learning, and also, not just recognize them, but also reward them, and I think this will create momentum. So the next slide is all about this. I'm sure many of you have seen this adoption, life cycle, and it, this is typically when you introduce something new, this is typically the life cycle you'll get. You'll always get your innovators, your tinkerers that will be, as soon as ChatGPT came out, they were all over it. These are your, innovators. And then, of course, you've got your early adopters, and hopefully these are your champions. The ones that are just naturally curious and eager to try TeacherMatic and see the value immediately with this. And together, they make about 16%, as you can see here, right? And here's really the trick, by the way. And according to this theory and the research, by the way, you can get the tipping point or critical mass once you reach 16 to 18% threshold. So then this is where the adoption accelerates. So don't think you have to climb, Mount Everest. As long as you can get 16 to 18% of your staff adopting TeacherMatic effectively, you'll get now, this accelerated adoption across the organization. So the rollout guide is really designed to get you to that tipping point faster through the awareness, the desire, the knowledge, the ability, and the reinforcement. But of course, with that, there are key considerations. So there has to be this top-down approach, and there has to be stakeholder ownership, leadership buy-in, and ensure that someone in a senior position has ownership of this, where they ensure that they ensure and take responsibility of this role. And of course, you have to give staff the space and time to complete the course. So are you going to integrate it into your CPD programs, where there's going to be a 3-hour block for your staff to complete it? And of course, this community of practice that we've mentioned before, I think that's extremely important. We've seen excellent examples where staff are meeting on a fortnightly basis, where they're sharing their experiences, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well. And this fosters peer learning, and they experience, they share their experiences. Okay. So a couple more slides. Now, why is TeacherMatic so different? As you know, it was built by educators in the sector. So it was created and built by educators for educators. It's GDPR compliant. All our servers are in the UK. We never use your data to train the large language models. And it's a safe, secure platform that is sector specific. And of course, it's now supported by these two wonderful resources, which is this free online self-paced course, Getting Started with TeacherMatic, and this rollout guide to support some of the people responsible in rolling out new technologies such as TeacherMatic. So your call to action today, I think, is three things. Complete the Getting Started with TeacherMatic course, use the rollout guide to structure adoption, and of course, visit this very important URL, teachermatic.com/links, where you'll access a whole host of different resources, including, I think, very importantly, signing up for the newsletters and signing up for our future deep dives, which happen on the first Wednesday of each month. Now, the next one is on Wednesday, the 1st of October, where we're going to be looking at the flipped classroom model. So, want to thank you very much for your time today. And we really do hope that these two resources is going to be having a great impact in improving teaching, learning and assessment, improving staff well-being, reducing that workload, and ultimately improving learning outcomes. Thank you very much.